Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland, and I'm speaking to you from an undisclosed location. This video is about the BBC accent, not the way they speak now, because the BBC has a wide variety of accents, people are native speakers of English and people who are not. But I'm casting my mind back until an era that lasted to the 70s. From 1922, the foundation of BBC Radio, and following through the introduction of BBC television. So I speak Russi pronunciation. There are a number of different ways to say RP. This is the modern version of RP. Let me see. BBC accent is said to have really influenced the upper class accent, perhaps the upper middle class accent throughout the United Kingdom. Prior to that time, it's questionable whether an upper class accent really existed. Some people say it emerged in the late 19th century. Public school accent, often people called it that. So associated with various public schools that were fee-paying, particularly in southeastern England. Other people say, well, it's the way people spoke at court, as in the King's Court, the Queen's Court. Gladstone was a renowned British politician of the 19th century, Prime Minister on 4 occasions. And he is said to have spoken with a Liverpudlian accent, despite his father being in modern terms a multi-millionaire. Now, very wealthy people from Liverpool these days, especially if they grow up wealthy, might well have been to public school and would probably speak with something of a pucker accent. If they had a Scouse accent, it would be a very slight one. Lord Salisbury was Prime Minister until he stood down in 1902. There's a recording of his voice, and it's not quite the pucker accent that one might expect. Perhaps the prime example of the BBC accent was Lord Haw-Haw, who was not a lord at all. William Joyce is an Irishman, or he's born in New York, but grew up in Galway, and he moved to England as a teenager. But he affected this strikingly upper-class accent. Why was he pretending to be stratospherically posh? Perhaps to cover up his accent. He thought this was the voice of authority, gave him more credibility with his listeners in the United Kingdom when he's broadcasting from Germany in the service of the Third Reich. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'll read a text in my ordinary accent, and then I'll do it again in that old BBC accent from the 1920s to the 1970s. So listen to this. Fun facts about Belarus. The capital, Minsk, is older than Moscow. Historical references about Minsk are dated back to 1067. Minsk is like a phoenix. It has been destroyed in 8 occasions. Sick. The last time it was rebuilt was after World War II, during Stalin's time, with a classical style architecture. Right, I shall read it again. This will be the BBC accent of yore. Fun facts about Belarus. The capital, Minsk, is older than Moscow. Historical references about Minsk are dated back to 1067. Minsk is like a phoenix. It has been destroyed on 8 occasions. The last time it was rebuilt was after World War II, during Stalin's times, with a classical style architecture. So some of the features of that. I don't think we had a very good example. A's often come across as a letter E, like in hand. Maybe it sounds like hand. What else? One of the notable ones was saying elder rather than older. Words that rhyme with that sound very distinctive, like keld and held. Or indeed the word damn sounds more like damn. So it seems comical these days, but it was taken deadly seriously in the middle of the 20th century. So it'd be an affectation for someone to speak that way anymore. And so people don't broadcast that way on the BBC anymore because it would just be risible. They speak quite quickly. You notice even British films of the mid-20th century, the actors are speaking very fast. They talk about it being clipped, and often it is. However, the vowels are often long. It's a languid style of speaking. I know that seems to contradict it being very fast, but languorous over certain sounds, and they linger on them. I'm not sure, perhaps it's an expression of confidence. I could give you more examples. The first Nobel Prize winner in the Democratic Republic of Belarus is a woman. Her name is Svetlana Alexievich, and she won a prize in 2015 for her literature work. The first Nobel Prize winner in the Democratic Republic of Belarus is a woman. Her name is Svetlana Alexievich, and she won a prize in 2015 for her literature work. Something like that. So I have to put a bit of effort into it, turn up the plum factor, and perhaps it's laughably posh to you. So almost nobody speaks like that anymore, perhaps some very elderly people. That's the BBC accent as was, and the BBC rigidly insisted that people had to speak like this, and it was understood across the world. Even a few people in India spoke like that. Thought about how the word here, as in here and there, was pronounced ha. For instance, Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, I saw a video of him speaking in the 1950s, and he's saying ha to mean here. Or there are other examples like that. So it's a very pucker accent. People come across as snobby if they pronounce things that way. They're using some snob plurals. Like, you know the way we say fish and deer? 1, 2, 3 fish, 1, 2, 3 deer. There's no plural like that. But even saying for lion or elephant, things like that. So irregular plurals. Just trying to think, saying jolly good show. Jolly is an intensifier to mean very. So these are some of the social markers of being a very upper class person, which I'm definitely not. My origins are proletarian. That's enough on the erstwhile BBC accent.